regarding sites that will have to be attacked, for example, or that have been attacked previously, such as hospitals or those so-called humanitarian aid centers or, well, aid points, whatever. Well. The thing is, the information you are giving in your live stream is important because, of course, why are these kinds of targets being attacked? I assume it's not just for fun. There's something in there, right?
Of course, if it were logical, and I invite the audience to do this mental exercise, just simple rationality. If Israel is always being blamed for attacking civilian targets, why would Israel want to attack civilian targets? It doesn't make any sense for us to want to bring hatred and sanctions upon ourselves. It doesn't make sense. According to international law, which, by the way, doesn't truly exist as a single entity, what actually exists are agreements between countries on weapons, treatment of prisoners of war, legitimate targets, and similar issues. Israel is part of several international agreements. Hamas is never part of these things. And it's no surprise because it's a radical jihadist organization that isn't interested in following any rules except what's written in their medieval little book. But the fact that Israel is part of these agreements means that if a target has medical purposes, it should not be attacked. For example, a hospital. And the laws of war in these agreements go on to saying if this medical facility, like a hospital or an ambulance, is used for military purposes. For example, an ambulance used to transport a terrorist commando loses its protected status under international law and becomes a legitimate target of war. For example, a few hours ago, there was an entire operation to strike the hospital, which is called the European Hospital. I'm not sure what they call it.
Yes.
Israel attacks a hospital. Let's see. How is it possible that in that hospital people were, let's say, killed? Muhammad Sinwar, if he has lost Sinwar, that already tells you something. Muhammad Sinwar, Muhammad Sharaba, who are the top commanders of Hamas. What were top Hamas commanders doing in a hospital during a war? The strategy is clear. Do you know how many hospitals are in Gaza? A little over 40. How is it possible that there are more hospitals in Gaza than, let's say, there are countries? Israel is a country where we have just a handful of hospitals, and we are a country with 5 times the population. How is it possible that Gaza is such a small country? Well, I call it a country, okay? Such a small territory, such a small caliphate.
But
They have so many hospitals because all of this is part of their war strategy. The moment they start using hospitals as hideouts and all that, it becomes a legitimate war target. This is according to international law, and that's why we in Israel can't just stand by. Hospitals are not embassies, they're not places to grant political asylum. No, gentlemen. The moment a terrorist enters a hospital, it becomes a military target. Zoo.
it's that clear. This was important to emphasize. Well, look, I'm also sending you greetings. Military Strategies, a friendly channel, a brother channel. A kiss to Estrategias, who is also keeping an eye on everything that's happening and wishes you all the best as well. And well, to everyone, to all the SIDF colleagues. Jacob, all this time, these past few days, look, Donald Trump has traveled to the Middle East. It turns out he's going everywhere except Israel. All right. They lift the sanctions. They lift up Syria. He makes deals with Saudi Arabia, with the United Arab Emirates, with Qatar. What impression has this made? First, what impression has it made on you? And what is the general impression in Israel?
Well, as you asked, I'm speaking from my perspective as a civilian now, okay? We don't mix oil and water. In Israel, the army is not political. The army, just so people know, because it's been heavily stigmatized, okay? In the Israeli army, you have people from the right, from the left, you have Jews, you have Arabs, you have Muslims. There are Muslim people in the army with me. So all the stories progressives tell are fake, right? It's literal. There are Christians. I met one here yesterday. Anyway, I'm going to speak to you from my personal perspective. When Trump said he was going to make a trip to the Middle East, I thought the conclusion of this would be the normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And what did we find? That he started exchanging greetings with Yulani, Abu Muhammad al-Yulani. For those who don't know, he's an arch-terrorist leader who was part of all the terrorist groups you know, the same ones. What names? ISIS, Nusra, Al-Qaeda. He was a member of all of them, and now he's the great dictator of Syria. Donald Trump met with him and with the Qataris. Who is Qatar? Qatar is ISIS with money. It's true that in Qatar they dress like royalty. Qatar is simply a country rooted in Muslim Brotherhood ideology. It's the radical faction that emerged from Islam in the 20th century as an anti Western response, ultimately seeking to create a global Islamic hegemony and eliminate anything that opposes it. Through jihad, they emphasize that a lot. Qatar is that, but with money. That's why they look like princes and so on. But the fact that they have an airline, or that they put the word Qatar on Cristiano Ronaldo's jerseys, or that they host a World Cup, that doesn't take away their jihadist nature. If we have an American president who goes and meets with all these people and there is no progress on the issue of Israel, so, of course, as an Israeli, it worries me because I see that those who are trying to suffocate Israel are the ones who are getting the most. Close ties to a president who, well, Donald Trump, I've personally mentioned him 1,000 times on my channel. Donald Trump at 9 a.m. isn't the same as at noon or 5 p.m. If he tells you something in the morning, he later denies it. How do you describe that? Donald Trump says things like, we're not going to allow Iran's nuclear program. Then, that same day, he's interviewed on a radio show. We're talking with Iran to find out. Then, in another interview, we're not going to allow Iran. Which Donald Trump should I believe? None. He's not a politician. He is the person who, in my opinion, is accountable to his own interests within the United States system. So, if money is useful to the United States, say Qatari money is welcomed. Why would Trump care? If it's useful for him to put a Trump Tower in Syria, then he'll do it because he doesn't care whether they're sheikhs or not. That's how I see his approach. So for me, what we need to do is make Donald Trump interested in the cause of Israel and for him to be interested in the cause of Israel, just like he was interested at one point. If the voters in the United States are, for example, primarily evangelical Christians, Donald Trump is going to vote against Israel. And with Trump, I think we need to find a way that benefits him. And since I think it benefits Trump, I believe he is seeking the Nobel Peace Prize. Several people have mentioned it. He had already brokered normalization, or well, he pushed or brought to light the normalization between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, between Israel and Bahrain, Israel and Morocco, with Sudan. That is what became known in 2020 as the Abraham Accords. And this was something that Donald Trump pushed to bring to light because Israel already had normalization with these countries, with Bahrain. It's just that Donald Trump, like a good Western showman, sat down to sign a paper and show it and all that in Bahrain and shake hands.
Yes.
So what he's doing is, in fact, there's already normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia. There already is, for example, the public remembers a few months ago, Iran launched 300 ballistic missiles and drones at us. Who took part in intercepting all those missiles? Saudi Arabia. So that normalization already exists. But what would be very beneficial is to push Trump to go after that Nobel Prize. And for that, I think he's trying to bring more parties into the Abraham Accords. Why? What happened? Yolani, who is the dictator of Syria, made a statement. Donald, I'm interested in taking part in the Abraham Accords. And Donald Trump, alarm bells go off for him. Why not? Of course, because that serves him. It helps his interest in winning a Nobel Prize. So if I can bring in a country like Syria, which has been at war with Israel or not at peace since Israel's existence, well, so I'm going to bring them in, even if it's led by a dictator, a jihadist in a suit and tie. What's wrong with him? So that's why I think that's the direction things are heading. I think that eventually there's a chance normalization could happen. So what's happening isn't entirely negative, nor is it entirely good. Like we said, the fact that they're hugging it out with the Qatari leadership is disastrous, for example. And this also goes for Spain. You're right there too. Those of you who are there, you don't know. And if there's an audience from the United States there, you don't understand the amount of money that Qatar has invested in the elites where you live. Universities in the United States have billions of dollars from Qatar. Why? Because Qatar wants to push a narrative among the elites of each country that supports what they are doing. So it's very disappointing, of course, to see Donald Trump because he knows it's no secret, and Donald Trump has said it. He said they're jihadists. He said it 1,000 times. And the next day, if they give me a plane as a gift, Trump, if Qatar is going to give me planes as a gift, and I'm going to make the biggest aviation deal with Saudi Arabia and all that, then I'm going to do it. Because for Donald Trump, it's ultimately about interest. That's what geopolitics is. It's not about emotions or preferences, but about what serves one's interests. The real question is, what is everyone's interest? Of course, I think that's the situation, but I think we're on the right track in the end. In the end, I think that normalization will be imminent. And that's basically it.
Well, I hope God hears you. And about Iran, how have you perceived it all this time? Yes, no, now they're negotiating. Yes, no, now it's delayed. Yes, no. What do you think? What do you believe? What do you think the outcome will be?
Iran, the thing is that Iran is at its lowest point in history. If you look at the graphs of the Iranian economy, we have never seen Iran at such a low point. Iran. This is obviously a good. For Israel, it's good because the less economic power Iran has, the less investment Iran makes in proxies against Israel. What are proxies? They're like, I like to say it a bit more explicitly, they're like Iran's tentacles. Yes. It has a tentacle in Lebanon called Hezbollah. It has a tentacle in Yemen called the Houthis. So you have less money, you can, let's say, feed those tentacles less. So the thing about Iran is that they are in very bad shape in many respects. It's true that Trump has said they're negotiating here and there, but the president of Iran openly says that the United States is ruining us. I mean, if you look at their media, you see that the opinion, it's not very favorable toward Trump. So we don't know. And that's something I also want to say to the public. Sometimes we can see what's reported on social media. Ultimately, there are things happening behind the scenes we don't understand. Who knows, maybe, and it's no secret that the Israeli government was sending money to appease Hamas before October 7th. Where did the money come from? From Qatar.
Why?
Because there was this theory, a naive theory, that if you kept the economy stable inside Gaza, they would be appeased and wouldn't attack you. What they forgot is that they are jihadists, and in jihadism, rationality doesn't exist. In fact, the greatest jihadists in history have actually been the richest ones. The Bin Laden family, billionaires, and still countless examples. Singwari, all these people, like Ismail Hanila with mansions in Qatar, are the biggest jihadists. In any case, what was being considered was this, like, let's say, siding with Qatar, even though it's an enemy country, in order to calm things down in Gaza. I think that behind the scenes, it's possible that something like this is happening, that it said Trump met here, but in the end,
Israel is a very strong country that Donald Trump does not ignore. It's a country that
contributes a lot to the United States, economically, technologically, and in terms of geopolitical stability. It's the main ally in the region. No matter how much Qatar tries, and Qatar can also be a major potential ally for the United States, but Israel is fundamental. That's why it wouldn't be a surprise if Donald Trump, Netanyahu, and the King of Qatar are making their moves there. By the way, I can also say the same thing happens with the issue of Yulani. Why? Because it would be in Donald Trump's interest to meet with Yulani and all that, to take Turkey out of the equation. Turkey is indeed a hostile force for the United States, and the way to take away its power is if you bring over the people close to Turkey. Who is the closest to Turkey at this moment? Yulani. So remove Yulani from the equation. Maybe that's Trump's plan.
could be. Look, I hadn't thought of that. It seems like a pretty accurate analysis to me because Turkey really is quite a dangerous player. Jacob, really, look, you have no idea how many supportive comments we're getting. Well, that you're getting in the comment section because you can't see it. But there's so much support for you, for your colleagues, everyone. Really, we're with you. I don't want to take up more of your time. You need to rest mentally. You need to be calm. So thank you so much. Please subscribe to the Jewish Philosophy channel. It's also a great channel for learning. Of course, and look, here we all are praying for you. Of course, blessings. They send you blessings. You are on the side of good. We are on the side of good. It's clear now who the people are with, which is with the state of Israel, with the Bible, and with peace. So lots of strength and courage.
Thank you all. Thank you, Fina, for the invitation. So there are people who, well, defend by force. And there are people like you who defend those of us who defend. And that makes you strong. That connects us. And this, I always say it, this is a struggle between, this is not a local struggle, it's a broader civilizational struggle. If you are taking part, those who are on Fina's channel, those who come to my channel, you are not apathetic to human history, and you are shaping the future of history, Hashem. May we all continue to have strength. We are going to triumph. I assure you, it will be a joyful future. Our grandchildren will be happy in a good world. It depends on us, obviously, and that's all. I send you my regards. I'm leaving, and all the best. Thank you, Fina, for the invitation.
Kisses, kisses. Thank you, thank you. Take care. Goodbye. Well, impressive. Goodbye.